Yes, sir. Well, we're going to go over I think the site work that's being bid out right now for the high school site. But before we get going, I graciously want to say since 2010, it's been an honor to be up here about monthly with you guys, but this is it. Mark Clinch will now be here, and John, to carry the reins on. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to John and the team and let them go over where we're at on the site.
Before you do that, Clyde, I want to say, you really, when you took over, it was a job nobody wanted, and you took it over under difficult circumstances, to say the least.
Right.
And I appreciate how much you care about this district and the job that you've done, so thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Scared to agree with him, but he's right.
Yeah. And I guess we're
And
all
I
gonna,
appreciate your
Yes,
work.
ma'am.
I didn't wear red, white, and
Like you're
blue, but I think they were right. John, you taking?
Yes.
Okay.
This will be a real quick update. We just wanted to inform you what we're doing. We're still working on the high school. We're in the process of bidding out the site work package, which will be the phase one part of the project. The package we're building out, as you know, we've divided the site into phase one and phase two because of issues with South Florida water management. But the phase one is the majority of the site. For getting it ready. That's where the buildings are, the retention ponds.
Is the phase two where the middle school will go?
No, it's actually a phase that we're potentially going to take 8 months to get the water management and Corps of Engineer approval for the wetlands area. So not to delay the school opening a year, we put that in a separate phase that can go on at that rate and not hinder the construction on the rest of the site. It doesn't affect the opening of the school on time.
Where is it, John?
It's on the extreme west end of the site.
Okay.
There's some water retention, there's some retention areas in the southwest corner of the site that we need to alter, but we don't need to alter them right now.
Okay.
And that's what's going to take the long approval rating time. We have Gil Bain here to give you an update on where they've been. They're still in the middle of bidding it. They bid it out. They had three. I don't want to get too much into it, but they had three firms apply.
I'll just go sit down now.
And he'll fill you in on where we are on the bidding process.
So we did. We put the early site package out to bid. We put that out to bid about the third week of May. And we did a site visit with the subcontractors on the 25th of May. We had a good turnout. We actually had a community outreach prior. We coordinated that with the foundation, and so we had good participation. However, when we actually received the bids, we did have some fallout. We had about 8 contractors that were interested, and we did have some fallout. The bid date was June 9th. And we had 4 confirmed that morning, but we only did receive 3 bids, which was still good. We got three real good competitive bids. 2 of the bids were real close, believe it or not, on several $1 million, close to $7 million. They were $20,000 apart. So real good participation on that side. One was way high. We received bids from Allstate Paving, Junior Davis, and Phillips and Jordan. So those were the 3 bids that were received.
Who were your low, mid, and high bidders? Or who were your, it sounds like there's 2 in the running.
Well, they're still negotiating.
Oh, okay.
So we can't put that out.
Yeah, we're still going through the de-scoping process. Okay. We're just about complete. We had our last de-scoping meeting last week, and we're expecting revised numbers. We got 2 of the 3 revised numbers back today. We're still waiting on the 3rd one. So until we see that 3rd one, once we know that, then we'll have a much better idea.
We're still scheduled for August of 2018 to open, right?
Yes.
Okay, good answer.
Yeah.
Wasn't a trick question.
Yeah,
No, I was thinking about turnover date versus the.
You had 2 bids that were close. How did those 2 bids fall out with your expectation of?
So they fell out under. So they were below our expectation, which I know is good news. Percentage-wise, I'm not exactly sure. We were somewhere between 5 and 10% lower than what we had estimated for that scope of work.
So the good news is, as of right now, we're still on time and under budget.
We are on time and under budget, absolutely. And I think we're looking to receive the Water Management District permit the 3rd week of August. And we're looking to submit our GMP probably Monday of next week.
I got a question.
So our early
Do we know, John, I guess I'll ask you this, do we know if there's any issues with the design relative to SROs needing repeaters in the building because the structure of the building will preclude the radio transmission?
I can't give you a definite answer right now, but I don't think we'll have an issue with them.
Okay.
But we'll definitely verify that.
And I know that's been a topic of concern for you, Mr. Wheeler. I actually met today with Randy and Clyde about some of the security discussions that we're having. We have a meeting set up with law enforcement on August 2nd, and we've also going to invite Mutual Link in to present to my senior leadership team. There's another option there that could perhaps enhance our security issues. So those are ongoing discussions to try to get us set. Okay? And then we'll be following that up with a closed-door security meeting with the board.
Thank you.
That is August 2nd, or the August 2nd is the precursor to the,
August 2nd is precursor.
Okay.
Yeah.
that's fine.
I need some more
I got
information
confused.
first, and then we'll be prepared to bring it to the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd say what we want to do, let the board know, as Dr. Pace so aptly put it, that we're on the budget and on schedule.
It's a beautiful thing.
Do we have any risk with this water management district for the piece that's out there? Is there any
No, we have
negative risk
by
to this financial?
splitting it, John Moody split this up, and he did an excellent job on doing it. By doing it this way, it doesn't delay us at all on waiting for the second permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Pace, when do you anticipate naming a planning principal for the school?
Next spring, to
And that
become
would-
effective July 1 of 2017. We typically give them a full year, but I'll name them in the spring. We'll advertise early February.
Got it.
And that would be a very appropriate time to have one on board for us from the
Right.
facility side.
I get it.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
Very good.
And
Excited.
that's all we had. Any questions? Any other questions?
Everything sounds good.
Keep that bid process up with the rest of the guys.
Absolutely.
Coming in under. On schedule and under, we like that.
John, is there any information we need to share on the off-site as far as the turn lanes or anything?
Well, that was all in this bid package, and so
Right.
it'll be, then the only question that's been raised lately is when do we want to do a groundbreaking? And we'll get back with you on that later. But no, the offsite is part of this phase one work, so it'll be started this August, September for the
And
offsite work.
that addresses the concerns that was raised by the county commission as well. Initially, when we talked about the site, the commission had some concerns about that as well, and making sure we had proper stacking and all that,
Right.
because their concerns were traffic, both current and big picture, long-term for that road and the development. So-
Right, and that, the road work has been run through the county process, and they've approved everything, the plans that we're building.
And I can't speak for the rest of the board, but as far as I'm concerned, if you need to and can start turning dirt before we have a ceremonial,
And we
granted,
planned on it.
I'm
but,
totally
Please don't
good
wait on
with
us.
it. You
No,
don't wait on
no.
me.
No, right now, my estimate would be around September would be the appropriate time to have one, but we'll work with Dr. Pace at
Be a little
appropriate
cooler,
time.
Yeah, a little bit.
September would be cool.
Should have done
a
it.
little bit, than right now.
And we spoke about actually turning dirt earlier, so that way we could actually get a stabilized area for parking and whatnot as well.
Do whatever you gotta do, just
Yeah.
take all the
Yeah.
time you need, just get it done on time.
Let us get started. We're ready to go.
Are you waiting, speaking of that, are you waiting on anything from us, from the board?
No, we're not. Currently, we're wrapping up the GMP. We'll have our GMP submitted on Monday, and then getting ready to negotiate that and bring it forward.
What are we calling this school right now? High school, double
High
C.
school on Boggy Creek.
High school on Bog Creek, okay.
I'm so happy not to hear FFF.
Sounds like pastrami on rye.
All right.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Don't know if that's a good thing that was 10 minutes, or?
Yeah, no, that's
I'll
a great
take it.
thing. Don't jinx it, Clarence.
No, I'll take it. I'll take it. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being
Short
here.
and sweet.
Yep.
Don't you wish all your board meetings were like that?
Hey, shit, they are. Mark, you know better, Mark.
I went ahead, and I had no idea this was going to be 10 minutes, because the last one we had that was going to be fast was an hour, and
Clarence, I don't want you to feel like we don't like you.
I don't care.
I don't want you to feel like we don't like you. I don't like Kelvin.
What's up, man?
So
Didn't mean to bother you.
so I was going to, I've ask Dr. Pace, when we have these workshops, just put an open area for discussion, so it's noticed, and if we have anything we want to discuss on our minds, we can. I did not have anything in specific here. I do have one thing I want to throw out to you all,
Yeah,
though.
let's discuss the presidential election and how we all feel.
Gary Johnson, baby. I got a brief question. It's for Amy, really, more than anybody else. I added some things to the agenda for the board, but the board's here. Is there anything that precludes me from bringing this stuff up now and not doing it at the end of the, are you okay if I bring it up now?
No, you have to do it during the board meeting.
No, you can do it now.
If it's open.
That's why I'm asking. If I got to do it during the board meeting, I will.
If we have, there's nothing we're voting on there, is there?
No,
So
not voting on
that
anything.
doesn't-
It was informational.
So if we had to vote, you could put it, still bring it up at the board meeting, right?
Yes.
Let me just offer this just as a, and I'm fine if it goes that way, but
I
my
got-
concern
I got-
would be that what if a member of the public saw that on the agenda, was coming for the meeting to hear that discussion, and then felt like that they were duped because we talked about it earlier than the time that they would have been here?
I'll blame you.
I think we need to discuss it at the board meeting if you put it on.
No, okay, that's fine. That's why I'm asking.
But if you want to ask me a couple questions now.
No. I've got, no, I've really got no, I was just, in the interest of time, I was looking to save some time, but
I know.
in the interest of protocol, I appreciate that. I'll just wait till the board meeting.
Okay.
That's fine. So, go ahead, Clarence.
I got something I do want to discuss. At the last board meeting, I brought up some concerns I had or issues with the Four Corners Charter School. And since that time, I've had a couple conversations with them. And some of the questions I've had are remaining questions. And what I had suggested to the Four Corners folks was that, I want to talk to you guys, but have a joint workshop. I don't know how it works when three of us are on both boards, but a joint workshop of the Four Corners Board, the Osceola County School Board, and the Charter School USA group, to kind of sit down with us and have us all go through what the expectations are of us and what our expectations are of them, and kind of put some of the concerns on the table and get it discussed. I don't think they were necessarily thrilled with that idea. They kept wanting to have just the workshop with the Four Corners Board. And I guess my feeling was that with the five of us that get rotated on and off, I think it's a conversation that the five of us need to be having, as well as, I wanted to open it up for the two Lake County folks too, if they.
I think it's fine. I guess the question I've got for you is, and I don't care if they're perturbed about it one way or the other, that doesn't matter to me at all. What are the issues that you got?
Well, I guess.
I've been on that board forever.
I know, and I guess some of my concerns are, the first board meeting I came to here, you're kind of in a fog, you don't know about half the stuff that's going on around you. And after a year and a half, you know about half the stuff that's going on around you, maybe. I feel like at the Four Corners Board, I feel like I'm spoon-fed a little bit, and when you ask questions, I don't feel like you necessarily get forthcoming answers. And I don't know, I feel like I'm making decisions and I'm voting on things that I really don't have enough insights or background into. And then when they ask me to sign something that says, I'm accepting responsibility for anybody in Charter School USA who's going to get test results to not use those results or leak them inappropriately, I don't even know who gets them. I'm not comfortable at all signing. And then we've had to sign this letter. It's like every week there's something else they want us to sign, and I'm not sure what the purpose of this stuff is, the fingerprint. It's like, it's getting more and more, I don't want to say cumbersome because it's not that cumbersome. I got to take an ethics class for this board, and then I got to go take an ethics class for the Four Corners Board. And I guess I'm not comfortable if I'm putting them out of compliance or getting them, I'm not comfortable with that. And I guess I want a better understanding of what do they expect from me as a board member, and what do I expect from them, I guess.
And I'm not going to try to speak for anybody. I'll say this relative to those meetings.
These are just my opinion.
No.
Everybody else may get it way more than I do.
90% of the stuff that we do in those meetings, we're meeting on a schedule to comply with what the state is telling us we need to get something in by this date, this date, this date, this date. So a lot of it is compliance, but as far as I'm concerned, relative to the school itself, Denise Thompson is an amazing educational leader, the principal there. Every year, She pulls in great numbers with that school, and, you know, reading scores, math scores, et cetera. Now it's room for improvement. With anything, there's room for improvement. But, you know, as far as, you know, I've got great confidence in Denise.
My question that I have for this board have got zero to do with the performance.
Then the
of the
rest of
school,
it's pretty
to be-
much compliance stuff.
Well, and I guess that's what I need to know. If my job is only to provide the checkoff for a box, I'm fine with
Okay.
that. But then don't ask me to sign something saying I'm responsible for the security of test information for the
Okay.
whole Charter School USA, because I'm not signing that.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't even know who the people are.
Right.
Mr.
So-
Tucker, I think that a big part of.
You can come up here. So.
Yeah, I don't know the protocol.
No. There is none.
Okay, great. Then I'll just be
Join us,
protocolist.
Amy.
Yeah, that's it.
I think a big part of this has been Charter Schools USA is trying to seek all this new accreditation, and so you're getting hit with all these new requirements.
Then explain that to us. I
Right.
guess.
Right, and I've been a conduit for that, but I'm not sure I understand all of it perfectly,
Right.
except that I think that it helps them with this accrediting body. So.
And I've sat through some of those, I know Tim has too, we've sat through some of these accrediting meetings, and, you know, I'll sit there and say that, you know, what a great, and it's really for Four Corners Charter School, that's where I insist they meet with me anyways. And I just speak in terms of Four Corners Charter School, Keene
Right.
Wells, and Canoe Creek. And, you know, Tapestry, we all remember results, I guess Renaissance, I spoke some about that, but I don't really speak about them outside of the context of Osceola County. And quite frankly, I mean, as charter operators go, they're as good as it's going to get.
And again, my question is not how they're running the school, the performance school, or anything. It's what am I accountable for, and do I understand what my responsibility and what I'm accountable for?
Right, that one document that sort of is almost like you're signing as a fiduciary, is that the one
Yeah.
that makes you nervous? Okay, I understand that.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the one that says I'm responsible that the test scores are not used in an inappropriate manner, and I don't even know who has the test scores.
Right, okay.
So,
So,
and I think that's a new document. I don't
It
think.
is, it's brand new, but they're asking all of they're going nationwide with it. Again, it's part of this accrediting.
And I'm not trying to be a nudge about the whole thing,
No,
but I
it's
just.
legitimate.
You know, when I talked to Dr. Esposito, she says, you know, you're responsible as the board that this is going well and that they're doing this and they're doing this. I'm like, well, I don't even have any information on any of that stuff. And I guess that's what's making me very uncomfortable.
so why have the Osceola board involved in the conversation as well? Is it solely because of your point that at any given year,
rotate.
we're gonna rotate?
Yes,
potentially
because
through
any
that?
three of us in any year, 2/3 of us are on, or 3/5 of us are on the board. So rather than have, just so everybody
That's the
knows,
sole purpose, though.
that was the sole purpose. And if y'all don't feel that's needed,
No, I'm fine either way. I don't really care, and I think there's wisdom in making sure that there's institutional knowledge amongst all of us, so that if anybody needs to sit in or slip in at any point in time, we
Yeah.
have that ability. The reason I ask though is because ultimately it's really the Four Corners Board that's the one that provides the authority and the accountability for that body and for that operation of that school.
But
So I think
we
that's-
are the board who can change the makeup of the Four Corners board
I get that.
if we so chose, to where, because I kind of brought that up about, because when I started seeing this, I thought maybe I'm the wrong person to be on this board. And that's really the gist, so we can have a good conversation. Is this the structure we think is best for Osceola County School District? And is it the structure that's best for Four Corners?
Because it is unique.
Okay, so
That's kind of where,
one of my other questions was going to be then, what about the Lake County Board? But I think you just answered that, meaning why not have the Osceola Board, Lake County Board, Four Corners Board, because any of them could also be. But I think you just answered my question in that we're the ones that ultimately have the authority to change the makeup. So
Right.
really you're wanting the decision-making body that ultimately determines what the makeup of that board
yes.
is going to be or will be or is, to be really the ones that are sitting there hearing and gleaning from that conversation.
And quite
really
frankly,
the
I don't
point.
care if the Lake County Board was interested in coming, if we put them on there and they come too.
You know, from a
Yeah, I know, and they have gone to a board member and a
community member,
community member, whether that,
that works for them.
yeah. so.
I'm good. If you want it, I'm glad to honor it.
I'll say this, Clarence, I mean, you know, basically in perpetuity, I've been on that board. But one of the things that over time it's done for me is that it gives a broader frame of reference and greater perspective, because we see how Osceola County Schools does something. they operate outside of the confines of Osceola School, but within the confines of public education in the state of Florida. So there are some things that, you learn something that we're doing here that maybe will work there, you learn something working there that you think will work here. And so from my perspective, it's made me a far more knowledgeable board member in terms of a lot of the educational metrics. Now, in fairness, though, they've had John Bushy there, who you probably don't know John. They've had Denise Thompson. I mean, so they've had two really good principals. And there's nothing personally at any school I like more than a principal who I can learn from. And if there's principals I can learn from, it makes me better at what I do. And I've been fortunate at Four Corners. There's been two principals there that I've learned a great deal from. So, and that's all.
I guess part of where I'm coming from is I would welcome that learning. I don't feel like and maybe it's my fault.
Well, I make it a point.
Oh, it's your fault.
That's fine.
Well, the geography is such that I'm far more engaged. Because I hear from families, and I got to call Denise Thompson, I got to call Mr. Bushy when he was there and bounce something off them, and they'll say, Wheeler, that's right, or Wheeler, you're crazy. And I'm okay with either one.
Okay. All right, so we'll get that set up here in the next.
Sure.
All right with you, Kevin?
Calvin, you're saying way too much. You got to use an economy of words, Calvin.
I'll go back to the peanut gallery.
It's
unless you
okay.
want me to say.
You might as well
It's
say
okay.
that.
Notes.
You're great.
That was the,
And I saw the letter that came today from the law firm relative to some of the training, and I'll share this conversation also. Larry had talked with the Four Corners attorney, Ed Pasquale, who knows public education all, relative to the training, and Ed said he didn't care if we didn't train them or not.
Right.
That was their attorney.
Right.
And so.
Go with that.
Huh? Yeah, I'm right. Well, Larry,
somewhere it needs to be said, then we're not going to ask you to do it anymore and tell you that we're out of compliance because you haven't done it.
The issue is, you
So.
got the Department of Education is not necessarily the most competent department, state department in Florida, and
First time I've heard you say that.
I'll say it again tonight if it makes you happy. And they'll come up with some ridiculous stuff to justify their existence too. And I think this is one of those instances where they've got a department of choice, and the department of choice has to say, we've done this, and this, and this is one of the things they're checking off. Now, in fairness, most governing boards of charter schools, though, aren't comprised of elected officials. So there may be some.
And I think that's the difference I'm trying to.
Right, there may be some justification, but they don't take into account that not everybody is necessarily, it's the square peg in a square hole, which is how they're looking at it. And we are anomalous, and so whether they can comprehend that or not is another issue in Tallahassee.
Because you already get the training elsewhere.
Right, well, Tallahassee, it's like Department of Education has two departments that's kind of like they don't talk to each other necessarily, and that's being kind. Dr. Pace, anything you'd like to bring up as long as we're.
Well, I didn't know if Mr. Weishauer or Mr. Soto had anything they wanted to talk about.
Nothing particular.
Mr. Soto?
Jay, you want to talk about the things you have on the agenda?
No, I'm going to wait for the board meeting
You could-
because if there's people coming to hear that, then.
You could still give opportunities for people to make whatever.
It's okay, I'll wait. There's no point regurgitating twice.
I did have two quick things, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's
If
fine.
you-
I
if
got
you've got
one
time
too,
to
but
discuss.
it's okay.
I mentioned at the last board meeting and wanted to clarify about the new ESE compliance specialists that we're adding at the elementary schools. Got a lot of positive feedback about that. But I said at that meeting that it was going to be funded out of IDEA, and that was incorrect. Wanted to clarify. It's actually out of our ESE guaranteed allocation, which is a part of the FEFP. So we're shifting some things around to make that happen. But I also wanted to share with you that by adding those ESE compliance specialists at our elementary schools, we've been able to take the support position that was trying to do that at some of the elementary schools and move it into some of our larger middle and high schools. So I really feel very good about the fact that we're improving our services to our ESE students and families and teachers who are working with them across the district as we move forward this year. So I just wanted to clarify that funding source. And then I met this week with John Wentworth and Don Fisher about Olay. Don and I currently make up the board
And
of
the
Olay.
and the swimming pool.
And our thinking is that we would like to try to potentially move up the contract renewal with Olay, or at least for consideration and discussion with the board, so that we could go ahead and get our legislative priorities established before they start having their congressional meetings in the fall prior to the session, which I believe is slated to start again next year in March instead of January. But typically that contract has run through October, and we'd like to potentially bring it to you in August for your consideration as a board and get those legislative priorities established. In my initial thinking, I'm thinking that it will primarily be pretty much the same. Our capital funding needs in terms of our board's priorities, and the county is still prioritizing their work at the farm project. But then, you'll have opportunity at that time to discuss and bring forth any other ideas that you have for that. I just wanted to kind of give you a forewarning about that and make sure we kind of had consensus about where we were going with that.
Very good.
I got one more thing.
Okay, let me go real quick. I asked Tanya, I think we talked about this at a board meeting maybe a year ago, on our kids that are graduating that are going into the military. And I know we had the conversation about that. And what I don't remember if I brought it up then or if I just thought about it, to be quite honest, but I've asked Tanya to come up or do a draft, which is in my inbox to look at, but basically a letter, kind of a congratulations letter to those students who are entering the military, and that we could sign as a board and the superintendent. Just congratulations, we appreciate your service to the country, just a nice, that each one would get. And I think we should all sign it. If you want them signed mechanically, we can, but this year, they're right off the bat, it'd be like 150.
Great.
Next year, what we would do, as they would sign up, we would
Does that
come to the
include
board
the
meeting, we have a little envelope, and you sign.
Does that include the Service Academy kids too, the West?
Yes.
Okay.
From all ones.
Yeah, that's
Your
great.
commission,
That's,
so-
totally
It'd be
good.
nice if, I don't know, if they would consent to it, if we can have that in the website somewhere, a page dedicated to that. They could even put a little bit of their story or something
It'd be
along
nice
those
if they'd
lines.
send us back a
Who would
picture of the
consent?
uniform.
If they would
The
consent to
student.
being
Right,
recognized?
to be recognized publicly, right, yeah.
There is quite a number of them. It's really impressive.
And it can be, and
Yeah.
it could actually
Like
even be
150 this
That's
year.
great.
on
So,
the school website.
Probably at the next
Doesn't have to be
meeting,
the
we'll have a
district.
big stack, or sometime if you stop.
I'll sign as many as we need to sign, and I'm in favor of doing anything we can to promote and celebrate the students that are making that choice
I think so.
in any way, shape, or form that we need to.
And couldn't have said it better too.
A lot of our students also pursue certification as Eagle Scouts. And I learned a little bit about that. It's quite impressive. And I recognize that as an individual board member, but I would invite you guys to probably consider doing part of the same thing that we're doing with our Eagle
The only
Scouts.
problem with that is Eagle Scouts are under 18, where these kids go into the military, but most of them are over 18, so it becomes a confidentiality issue with minors. I'm in agreement with you. I'm just
No,
thinking
no,
out
Jay,
loud.
you pointed out something important. If it could be done, then I believe that this board should consider it. If not, then, if Jay's correct and it can't be, then it can't be.
Eagle Scouts still get a letter from the president?
They do get letters from
He should get a letter from the president.
folks in Washington. I've just, like I said, I did my research on it, and
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive stuff.
I've worked with a lot of kids that are Eagle
Yeah,
Scouts.
I have
Some of these kids are banging their heads against the wall. I
You
got
got-
one more thing.
All right.
You good?
Yep.
Okay, Dr. Pace.
Yes,
And I don't
Mr.
mean to
Wheeler?
catch you off guard with this, and I don't need an answer right now, but a few years ago, when we started upgrading all this technology in our classrooms, one of the issues that arose at the time was that we had teachers that had laptops that couldn't interface with the newer technology. So we had a board policy at the time that we were going to replace 20% of the technology every year, under the premise that every 5 years a teacher would have a new. And I'm just curious where we are. Is that still in place? How are we doing with it? Can we afford it? Do we actually need it every 5 years, or can it go 6 years? I mean, I don't know the answers to that, and if we need to revisit it. And I know I'm catching you off guard, so I don't need answers right now. If you can answer, that's great.
It's actually perfect timing. We discussed it on Monday in my leadership team meeting. We have been setting aside 20% or 10%, I believe it's 10% of their budget, which is enough for a refresh for 20% of their teachers each year.
Okay.
As a part of their school discretionary budget, it's set aside and reserved for that particular use. We have had a request from some of the principals, particularly at our larger high schools, that have a little bit of a larger discretionary budget because, with that economy of scale, you have a little bit more flexibility, if they could have some flexibility, because they were keeping up with their responsibilities to replace 20% of their teacher laptop money, but still had some dollars reserved that had kind of been set aside for that. So what we are going to do is to move forward with setting aside, instead of a flat 10%, $1,000 basically times 20% of their teaching staff each
Okay.
year in their discretionary fund. So it's the right amount that they would need regardless of the size of the school for that specific purpose. And for those that have a balance that they've been carrying forward of these technology refresh dollars, they can work through their assistant superintendent to submit a plan for how they might use that to further enhance technology at their school, but not necessarily for teacher laptops, because they've been doing their good deeds in terms of keeping up with that refresh cycle, but still have some extra dollars that they would like to use to potentially buy some other things that we could put in the hands of kids and teachers.
So the follow-up question to that is, number one, is the once every 5 years the appropriate number? I don't know that it is or isn't.
Mr. Curran felt like that was a very reasonable
Okay,
number.
okay. And number two, on that same note, it goes a little bit further. I'm going to talk about bring your own device now. I'm just curious, how integrated is bring your own device now in the classrooms?
That's something that we'd want to do a little bit more research on. In terms of my general gut check impression, technology integration depends a lot on the comfort level of the teacher and the skill level of the teacher in integrating that piece. I believe, and Mr. Curran will give us an update on this, we're in good shape in terms of being on target with what the board's goals were for having the infrastructure in place to make BYOD possible beyond our high schools, but in all of our schools, if I remember correctly. But we can ask Mr. Curran to get you a specific update on that particular piece. But then it's a matter of how are we going to make that work. And we currently do not allow employees to put their own devices on the network. And that is something that as we move forward, Mr. Curran would like for us to explore. It will require some policy adjustments, and we're not ready to do it yet. He's sent Dana, and we're currently working through some potential social media guidelines that we would make, more specific and more public and more specific for staff to comply with as we move forward, because we want to make sure we do it safely, but we want to make sure we also recognize their professionalism and the ethical standards that we hold them to, and allow them, that professional freedom to use technology appropriately with their students.
Well, when Mr. Curran and I met last week, one of the questions I was compelled to ask him was, okay, you're in a similar position in Colorado. What were they doing there that we should be doing here? And that was the first thing he said was, staff was bringing in their own technology. So, and it was I shared with you also.
Right. And we're, like I said, going to work toward that. We're just not ready to do it today.
I'd be curious from the BYOD perspective, and to your point, if a teacher is successful teaching kids with chalk and a chalkboard and the kids are performing and doing well, I'm not going to, I don't want to tell someone to dictate what to do, but Kelly Cotton's a great example at Celebration High School, the way she integrates BYOD. I'm just curious, what kind of successes are we having with it? I know Kelly, for instance, intimately in the classroom, I've seen her, plus she gave an incredible presentation to the board a year or two ago. I'd be curious to see best practices as it relates to that. Teachers that are being successful with it, what are they doing? I mean, what are they doing? And maybe how can we help them train, kind of train other teachers to do it? Now, I don't know what that looks like or doesn't look like, and I know that it's new territory for a lot of people, and teachers may be doing something nobody thought of, which is okay too. But if it's working, it's working.
I know that Mr. Clark and his team had a technology academy last week for teachers. I'm sure we can get some success stories from some of his work and the work of his team in schools, and perhaps bring it to you this fall once we get kind of back into the swings of things.
Bring the teachers with students. Let the kids and the teachers show us.
Okay. Fall, right?
Yeah, when they're in school,
Okay.
yeah.
Just making sure.
A quick thing I'll bring up. Have any of you been involved at all with any of the conversations with regard to the school board and GoPep? No? So as you will recall, that's a conversation I've been a part of now since its inception, really. Be honest, I've always thought that the school board should have been part of GoPep from the very beginning, and at the inception of it, we do understand the landscape that existed politically at that time. And so things moved forward as they did. In 2012, I was a part of a conversation about the school board becoming a part of GoPep at that time. There was a financial component to it, and it was like, we're not looking to spend any money right now. That's not the right move. We're working on balancing our budget, so on and so forth. The conversations continue to evolve, and it got brought back up to me again sometime within the last couple of weeks. In fact, I think it was when we were in Tampa. The current idea, and there's nothing that I've heard formal yet, but just to kind of float it out for you guys to think about, the current idea would be that my understanding is that the GOPEP board recognizes that having the school board involved in economic development conversations early on is really smart. By the way, Valencia is part of that board as well and has a seat there. Initially, there would be no financial commitment none from the school board. The conversations that I've been a part of, which have been with a couple of chair people of GOPEP over a couple of years now, has been that, number one, I don't know that the board will ever approve a financial contribution or not. Number two, I think it would be smart to change the charter, bring us to the table, allow us to begin to work through that and see if we do feel like there's a mutually beneficial relationship that exists for the school board and for GOPEP, thus the community at large. And then at that point in time, whether it's a year or 2 years down the road, the conversation could be brought to the school board. Here's the value that you guys are seeing in being a part of this conversation, being at the table and working as a collaborative community partner to build economic development opportunities. Would you be willing to X? And then the board at that time, based upon desire or budget, can make a business decision of whether or not we do or don't think that's favorable. I'm of the opinion that we should, as said, be a part of it. There's the GOPEP, I believe, was meeting sometime in the last week or two, and their board was going to discuss it. I haven't heard a report back yet on whether or not that had or had not happened. But since we're sitting here having a conversation, it's probably a good time to just get the pulse of the board. You guys interested in that? Would you want to have the school board involved in the GOPEP conversations in an official capacity? By the way, both cities and the county are there.
Yes and yes for me on that.
Okay, so that's an easy.
And as long as you're willing to participate, I'm willing to support it, because you think it's good. I don't know that much about it, but yeah, I think there's value in it. But at the same time, I think that are you on that board already?
No.
Then I think you should be on that board, and I'm all for it.
Pam would appreciate that. Thank you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really don't have any opinion, to be honest with you. If this is something that you feel strongly about, I trust your judgment.
Okay. Deborah?
I think it would be a great idea. I had
By
an
the way, I'm
opportunity.
not petitioning to be the board member.
No, I'm making the motion.
I think that's what everyone.
You can do it. Well, you can do it.
I know that Jeanette Eddy has attended as a member of the team, but not as a board member, obviously, just as someone from the community who's participated. I attended a meeting, I believe, 2 months ago, and found it very valuable to be a part of the conversation, and I think they enjoyed that level of engagement. I definitely think the school board should have a voice in that group.
I feel the same way. We'll see what Mr. Booth thinks as well, but it sounds like for the most part we're on board with it. No pun intended. And then I'll reach out to Bill Martin and just have a conversation, let him know that we floated the
Who's
idea.
chairman of that board, too?
Right now it's Viviana. Cheryl is past chair.
I thought it was
And
Cheryl.
actually, she's past chair. Mark Durbin is past chair.
Mark's getting off of every board, he just had more grandkids.
Yeah, but he's on the value adjustment board with me.
He just got off of, city board. I don't remember.
Yeah, community vision.
Right.
Good. I think it's a good thing.
I think it's a good conversation.
If they could come and do like a 5-minute, 10-minute presentation, that'd be great for
Yeah.
us.
We'll do that in a second.
Yes, yeah, brief.
I mean, when you asked the question first off, I'm very familiar with what GOPEP is and what they're doing. I wasn't familiar with the conversation about us.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I know you're familiar with who they are. Yeah, without a doubt.
I know I should know this, but tell me the schedule we're on for the strategic plan, next step.
Sure. I have been working with my senior leadership team and some other directors and above on strategic plan activities and strategies to go along with the goal statements that I've shared with you all. We are meeting tomorrow to kind of do some peer review, do some final work with EDI, and then plan to bring those to the board for consideration on July the 12th.
That's what I thought.
Is that at the board or is that a workshop?
That's at a workshop.
Okay.
We have a workshop at 2, so we have a couple of
Okay.
hours.
I knew there was
So I'll
some.
need your feedback on the mission and vision,
How soon,
on the
how far in
5
advance-
goal
How far in
statements.
advance will we get the information to review?
You have the mission, vision, and goal statements, and I'll try to have the strategies to you on Thursday, the 8th.
July.
7th.
Will you resend all that so that it's in Outlook or whatever, Outlook now, instead of having to go into first class?
Or I can resend it too.
Yeah, whoever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll just say this.
The plan then would be for us to take that work back, once we have your feedback, to polish it again with EDI. My team will meet again on July the 25th. And then my hope is to bring to you a plan for approval with the budget workshop on August the 2nd.
Okay, Dr. Pace.
So that we're actually working toward the budget and the
Same
strategic
thing,
plan
but tie together.
at the same time, because I do believe those things should tie together.
I will share one quick observation, because I rejected a strategic plan in the last couple of years because it had something on there specifically with over 50% of our students not passing a core subject. And so, which is not to set anybody up for failure, success, etc. Anything on there when it comes to our kids for an academic performance which has them performing at a poor level. If I see it, I'll call you, number one, before I would vote on it. But I would view that very unfavorably.
And I appreciate that insight, Mr. Wheeler. I am aware of those concerns, and you know that I share the same level of high expectations that you have for our performance. My goal will be to have, as we've talked about, some 3-year metrics and 3-year goals, and we'll be closing that gap with the state over the course of the 3 years. It's not something we're going to be able to do overnight. And then what I would ask is, as you as a board, to give me an opportunity to have a year 1, a year 2, and a year 3 benchmark as well as your superintendent.
And I'm not as concerned about the state as I am about, real results. What the state says, that, there's a flavor of the month going on there anyway, so I'm not worried about that. Okay, I'm very anxious to see what you got.
I've always understood your principled approach to that. I guess I've always struggled with, the numbers represented reality was part of the issue. And then it was saying, this is reality, which we're not content with, and we want to move the needle thus far in any given year. And that's going to be the same case that Dr. Pace is going to bring to us. And so I guess since we're having the conversation, to head off potential for issue downstream on this, if you're going to vote against a strategic plan because it states reality, which is essentially what that was.
I can illustrate. I can give you an illustration. So let's look at AP exams, a great example. Okay, AP exams aren't state of Florida. They're AP exams. Our AP exam, percentage of students taking them, percentage of students passing, that's not a state metric. AP is AP. SAT, ACT scores, that's not a state metric. CTE, career and technical education, if we look at industry recognized certifications, those aren't Department of Education, those are industry certifications, things like that. Those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for. Duke TIPS program, want to see that expanded, that grow. Arts, there's things like that. There are certain things, right? Reading, math scores, etc. There's some of that stuff you got to take into account. You're right, I get that. But there's a lot of other parts and pieces that aren't part of that.
So I agree with you 100% on that. I guess the point is, in the past, the argument has been, I'm not going to vote for this plan because it says that 50% of our students are reading at a level 2, and I'm making the numbers up. And you were mad at that being in the plan, but yet at the same time, that was the reality of where we were at. And those components are still going to be part of our plan because it's the reality of the landscape.
The expectations I didn't think were high enough.
Okay, and that's a different conversation. If it's about the expectation.
It's not about where we are now. The
Okay.
benchmark where we are now is where we are. That's finite data. But to say, it's kind of like a team that's 1-12. The next year you're 2-11. You say, oh, we're twice as good as we were last year. Yeah, but we still are in the basement. So that was kind of like what I felt was being passed off to me in the past. I'm not looking for incremental improvement that makes us maybe not at the bottom, but still towards the bottom. That's my point.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you on that and the desire. Without a doubt, we're on the same page. I think all of us are on the same page with that. I just was concerned about the mechanics of it and the mechanics of how we've dealt with it over the last year or two, and not setting the superintendent and the leadership team up for difficulty or an expectation going into that meeting with them simply stating a fact and you being mad about what
No, the
the
facts
fact
are the
is.
facts. And I'll say this, I've got as much confidence in this leadership team as in any leadership team I've ever had to work with. My expectations are very high, but I think we've got an incredible team. If there's anything that in my opinion, Dr. Pace has done, which has spun my head around, is built her leadership team like that with amazingly qualified, driven, accomplished people. Don't let it go to your heads. But I mean, that in and of itself has been quite an accomplishment. Now they all realize they got a lot of hard work to do.
Sure. And keep in mind that you don't turn the ship on a dime. It's going to take, as I said, some incremental work, but we're going to be setting our standards high and our expectations high because I do believe our students can perform. One of the things I would remind the board is that as we've had our strategic plans discussions, we've talked about focus and the fact that we didn't want 30 pages of 30 different metrics. So I'm asking my team and challenging all of us to narrow our focus, to bring to you 15 strategies, with those 5 goals and these specific things that we're going to measure. That doesn't mean that we're not going to also look at other things. We are, but this is going to be our fundamental work that we're all going to hold ourselves accountable for and continually remonitor and report back to you the progress that we are or aren't making.
Well, I would say this. Don't underestimate yourself. Don't have you underestimate yourself. You're all capable of greatness, great leadership. And I know that you can inspire and motivate. You'll get everybody in this district wanting to run through walls for you. I know you will. And that is not an understatement. So I've got great confidence in all of you.
Hear, hear.
Anybody after the American flag? Anybody?
Hey, don't knock the American flag, buddy. He's got my socks on.
Kelvin?
I think the only topic I would like to just revisit is the one about the BYOD. Several years ago, the district made an incredible investment in infrastructure and technology, and I just haven't heard a lot about it. And I'm just saying, by the way, I know that you came in and you did your assessments as to how that's working. I think that maybe we should probably have a little bit more in-depth discussion to see where we're at. Are we where we wanted to be 3 years ago? Because I don't know. I mean, I feel that we're not, but I could be mistaken. And remember, I'm on a perch and I don't see how everything is going. But I want to know, because this board, slightly different board, but the general feeling is that we really wanted to invest and see how that turned out. And if we're having issues that the teachers are not adopting, administration, there's technological barriers, probably need to know a little bit about them and see how we want to continue forward. So maybe it wasn't such a great idea. Maybe it could be adopted somewhere. Who knows?
I really appreciate that, Mr. Soto, and I do intend to get a board update for you all, and we can even make it as a board presentation, so to speak.
Probably.
Just giving Mr. Curran a little bit of time to get on board and really dig in.
Understand.
But I think absolutely we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'd really like to see how it's been working with at this classroom level.
Okay.
Because I just haven't heard a lot about it, and that's just me. Maybe the other board members have a different opinion.
Question.
I think it's a great question. We'll work on that.
We all get an update daily on it, you don't?
I know, and I want to be in the loop.
It'll either be
okay?
the second meeting in August
Deborah, please.
or one in September. We'll make sure everybody's in the loop, okay?
It'll be fun, and Jay, thanks for bringing that up. That was a very good topic to bring
And I
forward.
apologize, I can't give you more specifics today, but we'll get it to you.
Well, you didn't know I was bringing it up.
Mr. Weiser, or anything else? Four of you, we're here. Do you have anything for us or any questions?
Come on. Okay.
July 12th will be a longer day because we're going to have strategic planning, we're going to have budget update, we're going to have
Wait, I
facilities
got one
update.
question. Will there be an
Board
executive
meeting.
session July 12th?
Not one planned right now.
Good. That's a great
I
answer.
think Randy plans to ask for one.
Well, there are only 4 of us here, and we're getting done earlier. We're having a workshop alongside.
Wait, is there any-
So
is
it
there anything
seems
you
to be
want-
obvious where the problem was.
Is there anything?
I'll be sure he knows that.
Wait. As long as there's only 4 of us here, is there any boards or anything we need to assign Ricky to?
I think we should all vote that he wears the same shirt you did.
Nah, I'm not gonna-
Board meeting.
It wouldn't look as good.
I like to
It
see
wouldn't look
Tim in a
as
shirt like that.
No,
I know, before.
the only thing I have like that's a bathing suit.
Take a picture, put it on Facebook.
America.
Right on. Sing Lee Greenwood background.
Do you have anything else?
No.
So we will stand adjourned till 5:30.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
thank you.